Good morning, everybody. I wanted to just come and say hello to you all on this beautiful Thursday. It's December 22nd, 2022. Do you notice all the sequences of twos that are in today's date? This is a very powerful day. It's a very good day for manifesting. We're in the Yuletide season, or coming up to the Christmas season in just a couple of days. I hope everybody's prepared and ready for the receiving and giving season. I say receiving because as you give, you're also receiving. A lot of people think that when you give, that you're just giving. But what you don't realize is that when you're giving, it's the same principle as when you're giving a hug. When you give a hug, you're never not getting a hug back. So it's the same thing when you give something. If you're in that attitude of gratitude, which is today's theme, which the universe has channeled through in today's message, if you're in an attitude of gratitude, you receive more. So even when you're giving, be in that attitude of gratitude. Be grateful that you're able to give somebody something, that you're able to explore a new feeling of love and happiness and joy. Like for me, if I give somebody a gift, my greatest gift is to see their face as they're opening it. Whether they like it or they don't, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that I have been able to give something to them that they're receiving, and they have that joy, that glee, that happiness of opening something, of receiving, just receiving something. And it doesn't have to just be at this time of the year. It's throughout the year. We're constantly in a perpetual motion and in a cycle. And as we're giving, we're also receiving. So even if you just give up a smile, even if you're unable to purchase anything lavish or wonderful or anything at all, put a note under the tree for somebody, even if that person is you. Give yourself a note. Give yourself a message of love, an attitude of gratitude. List the things that you're grateful for about you, or your wonderful attributes, your amazing contributions to this world. And it could just be that you opened the door for somebody yesterday, and you smiled as you did it, and they said thank you, and you said you're welcome. That is a beautiful giving and receiving. You see, what you have to understand is that in the universe, everything is in a perpetual motion. And as we're giving, we're always receiving. So even if you're giving of yourself and you have nothing left, you do realize that you are still receiving. However, of course, if you've been following me for a while, you will know that I always say receive for yourself first to make sure that you are complete, you are full, you are whole. And then you can give of what is the leftovers, what is overflowing. If you go back to the old saying, my cup runneth over. Well, when your cup runneth over, you've received for yourself, you've nurtured yourself, you've loved yourself, you've taken good care of yourself. Maybe you're even dating yourself. That's wonderful. That's the best thing to do, is to date yourself and show yourself how much you love you, because you are such an important individual. And we tend to seem to forget the fact that we are individuals who are in this perpetual motion cycle as well. So we always have to give love and gratitude to ourselves, as you would to somebody else. As you would see another person and you would give them that attitude of gratitude and just gratefulness to be alive, to be around people, to enjoy this camaraderie of life around you. We've come out of a couple of years, 3 years, 2.5 years. Now we're looking at it coming up to this is the third year from the pandemic, and we're out of this situation. But take yourself back. Take yourself back to that time where you were sitting in your home alone, locked down. Maybe you had kids around you, your spouses around you, but you were pretty much isolated from the rest of the world. Only your immediate people. And for those of you who are single and who live alone, that was a difficult time. You faced incredible loneliness. You had to create devices for yourself and diversions for yourself, not devices, but diversions for yourself, in order to be able to keep yourself sane. And maybe you didn't stay sane. Maybe you lost it for a bit. And that's okay, as long as you came back. And we're so grateful that you are back. We, the collective, the universe, we are so grateful that you are here. But during that time of isolation, you truly were in a bubble away from the rest of society, the rest of people. And when that happens, we become devoid. We become devoid of external love, external touch. Even if you were with your loved ones, it's not the same as being in society, being around other people. We are societal creatures. We need to have life around us in order to be able to maintain, to function, because we're social beings. We don't come from isolated spots. We come from a universe that is filled with beings, filled with souls. So when I talk about the attitude of gratitude and just having people around, just opening a door for somebody and smiling at them, this is now a give and take. A smile is as good as a hug for many people. Sometimes you might be sitting in the car, sitting at traffic, and you happen to look over, maybe the car next to you, maybe somebody sitting at the bus stop, maybe someone waiting to cross the road. Give them a smile. It might not mean much to you, or you might not think much about it, but that is putting you into that perpetual motion of attitude of gratitude. Because a smile is giving, and in giving you're so too going to receive. And so the message today in the attitude of gratitude, in being able to give and to receive, is to realize that you're constantly and always in that perpetual motion of giving and receiving. Everything you do, if you do something negative, if you get mad at somebody, if you honk your horn in the traffic or you scream at somebody, they might not be able to see you, they might not be able to hear you as you're screaming in your car, but their soul picks up on it. Their higher self, their higher power, you are now having an interaction with somebody who you don't even know. And in that interaction is a give and take. So if you're giving of negativity, expect to receive negativity. When you're giving of love and peace and light and good energy, good vibes, so too will you receive good energy, good vibe, love, peace, happiness, joy. Because, that's all we all really want in life. People ask all the time, what is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is to experience and explore everything. And in so doing, having happiness and gratitude that you've had that experience. Maybe your life in this round is not the best. Maybe you've had some pretty crappy situations happen to you. Most of us have. But being in that attitude of gratitude, you can also separate yourself from that experience as being something that you internalize as an emotional, personal attack, to being that is a lesson. Everything that happens for a reason. Everything. We might not understand the reason, we might not know it, but when we perpetuate that thought of being in gratitude, that mindset, that emotion, that beingness of being in that constant state of gratitude for everything that has happened, for the cup of coffee you have in the morning, for maybe even having an argument with somebody. What did you learn? Get that ego out of the way. Step away from the ego and the poor me victimization. Because things are not happening to you. You are simply a conduit in an environment of factors, which is all moving in a perpetual motion to help you advance. So you have two choices. You come to many forks in the road. Your choices are, you can either allow it to get to you, allow ego to take over, allow yourself to be in that situation, in that state of being, I'm so hard done by, everybody hates me, people don't take care of me, people don't love me or show me any attitude of gratitude, so why should I take care of them or be kind to them in turn, or why should I be nice to the next person when that person wasn't nice to me? Well, then you're in a downward spiral when you start to have that kind of motion. You start to spiral down into a place of shadowland. Now, the shadows are nothing to be afraid of, to be truthful. because we do enter into the shadows in order to do healing work, in order to be able to connect with our true self, our higher self. Our higher self actually lies in the shadows, because that is where our trueness is, our reality is, the person who we are, maybe the person that we're trying to hide behind masks that we show to other people that we're somebody else. But when we can go into the shadows and we can reach that place and we can find peace within that area, we can then start healing. When we get rid of fear, fear honestly is just false evidence appearing real. Now, there are real fears in the world, of course. If you're going to go hiking in the mountains and a mountain lion turns up, well then of course that's a real fear. That's a different kind of fear. That becomes now to the primordial fear. But fear of life, fear of moving forward, fear of not leaving a job or a relationship or a place of residence, and just accepting and allowing yourself to be the battering ram for the universal dumping grounds, as some people might like to choose to call it. But these things all happen for a reason. And most of the reason is for us to rise above, to separate ourselves from ego, because ego lies in the shadows. Ego lies in that feeling of perpetual being hard done by, victimization. Let us remove ourselves from ego. Realize that maybe somebody said something to you in a harsh way, but it has nothing to do with you. Maybe it does. Maybe you've triggered something in them, and that's okay. We're all allowed to get triggered. However, the point is to realize and recognize the trigger and to step away from being triggered. That is growth. That is now realizing and coming into that realization and actualization that these things are in a perpetual motion to help us to grow. When you have somebody say something or be nasty to you, maybe you've checked out at the store and the girl who's checking or the guy who's checking you out has had a rough day. Maybe they've had 1,000 people come in before you. It's this time of the year and people are upset, people are angry, people want to get out of the store because there's so many people. It's amazing how we went from being so isolated and desperately wanting people and crowds to suddenly going back to, oh my gosh, there's so many people, can't handle this. Human nature is a funny thing. However, it is important to recognize that even if somebody is not being so kind to you or responding to you in a matter that you would hope for them to respond to you, which again is ego now laced, it is important to step back and say, I hope you have a great day. Merry Christmas. Just to give them a smile. Happy holidays. Whatever you'd like to say. Give them a smile. Step up and above. Step over the muck and the mire which has been spread out. It will change their day. It will help them change their vibration. They might not even properly acknowledge it at first. They might just say in passing and thanks. But a second later, once you have left, their psyche will come into alignment, into awareness and say, wow, that person was just nice to me. And maybe they might now start a new cycle where the next person behind you, instead of dumping on them, they smile and say, hi, how are you? How is your day? Everything is a work in motion. And we are all part of that motion. That is what we are doing here. This is what the purpose of life is to learn to be, to accept, to be a part of the conglomerate, I guess, if you'd like to call it. It's a universal conglomerate. I can't even speak. A conglomerate of souls, which translates to a conglomerate of people. Because we're all here together. And once we leave here, if you think that going up into the ethers, you're going to be in a bubble all by yourself, that's not quite how it works. I hate to burst your bubble. But it's true. The more that we have that attitude of gratitude, the more happy we become. The more we can be open to learning. The more we can separate ourselves from ego. As we separate ourselves from ego, we can now step back. and we can observe and become the observer of your life. Observe what's happening. This is the place that you can be, which is an ideal place to realize what are toxic energies that are around you or within your environmental space. These toxins, are they doing anything for you? Maybe it's now time to separate yourself from those toxins. The job, the home that you're living in, the relationship, anything that's not in alignment with your being in alignment. It's not necessarily that it's there for you. Once you have learned your lesson, the lesson will disappear. People say to me quite often, I don't understand. I've been in a relationship with this person and it was a terrible relationship. I got out of it. I got rid of them. Now I'm free. I met this next relationship. And this next relationship is just as bad, if not worse. I left the job. That was awful. I wasn't getting anything out of it. I left that job. I got another job. But the job is still the same. I'm having even more stress. I'm even more upset. I'm even more in that place. Well, because you are now in that environment of not learning. Once you have learned your lesson, the lesson disappears. That is a promise. Being in that attitude of gratitude, removing yourself from ego, realizing that what anybody else thinks or says about you is not any of your business, good or bad. We tend to not focus so much on the positives that other people might be saying, but we sure as heck focus on that negative, that one negative remark. It keeps playing and playing and playing over and over, as if we have this record going on around in our head. The more that we dwell on that negative sentence, word, conversation, the more we are going to attract to us. With the moment that we're able to receive what is being said, what has been said to us, and we can let it go, and we can move forward. This is when we're going to be able to remove that ego, because that is where all the ego lies, in all of that. Everything is being done bad to me. I'm a victim. I've been a victim my whole life. Many of us have been. And not that we are actual victims, but we create that in our minds. We create that space of victimization. We don't need to. Once we get into that place of being grateful, remove that ego, separate ourselves, allow ego to have its little moment. Because sure, when someone says something adverse to you, there's going to be a reaction. Again, this is in the ego. You can allow ego to have its moment. As the human nature is, we do need to acknowledge, because otherwise we're stuffing. The more that we can acknowledge, and the more that we can then take that acknowledgement and say, oh, okay, yeah, so that happened. Flick it away. Literally, flick it away. We don't need that in our life. That energy, that motion, that thought pattern, that just keeps us locked in the ego side and keeps us out of the attitude of gratitude, which is the side that is our spiritual side, our higher self side, our area that we can truly learn to move forward. So what is this purpose of life? As I now return, I digressed a lot. I tend to do this. The purpose of life is to learn, to be able to learn to separate ourselves from that ego and victim mentality and that cycle that we're perpetually creating on the ego side. We got this whole wonderful side of being in that attitude of gratitude, of being free. It truly is freedom. It is free to be separated from being triggered and being in bad moods and upset and allowing ego and people's words, verbiage, which is nothing. Somebody's going to say something to you, yeah, they'll forget about it. But once you keep holding on to it, you're perpetuating it and you're growing it. you're breathing life into it. Stop breathing life into all of that stuff. Move into that place of being, oh wow, this person said this. It kind of did trigger me. Now I'm grateful because now I know that I haven't healed in this area. This is now a place for me to start healing. This is now the area, the topic. And where does that stem from? Now I can start going into the shadows, not from an ego-centered space, not with ego, but with that attitude of gratitude and that peace and harmony. We can now go into the shadow space and say, okay, so this is what happened then. This is where the seed was planted that was for the rest of my life now. When somebody says this, it's going to trigger me that. Little things. When I say the attitude of gratitude, most people think, oh, she just wants you to be grateful for everything. Well, yes. However, we'll call it the fallout of this having this attitude is that you can now see clearly. This is the place that you will like to come to be in complete perpetual clarity. Clarity is what is key, because we react. We are reactionary people. We are in a reactionary state constantly. This person said this, it triggered this, now I'm reacting. That cycle. But when you are in a different place and you can separate, this person said this, oh my goodness, well, that's really sad that maybe they feel this way about me. I'm sad for them because I'm great. I'm wonderful. If they got to know me, they'd love me. That's ego as well, though. Be careful how you word it. It can catch you and trip you up. But the best thing is when you can be in a state of somebody said this, you can feel that trigger happening, and it happens right from your solar plexus, and it moves up into the heart chakra, and then you get that lump in your throat, and that's affecting now your throat chakra. And either you're going to stuff it down, thinking, oh, I'm spiritual, I can't be triggered, I can't be there, which is ego again. We push it down. We don't let it out. That's why I say acknowledge. Be an acknowledgement as well, because when you can acknowledge, then you are in a different state of mind as well, in a state of being. You can be able to say, okay, I was triggered. I acknowledge that I was triggered. You have to give acknowledgement, because to deny is the stuff. You want to always give acknowledgement. So you give acknowledgement to having been triggered, having understood that what this person said triggered you. You can now go into the shadows and say, all right, well, I was triggered here. What was this that affected me? Was this a trust issue? Because most of us, it's going to be a trust issue, because we have lack of trust. We might feel that we trust somebody, but the truth is that all of these stacked up triggers, all of these stacked up experiences, it comes back down to an issue of trust. So then we can say, okay, was it a trust issue? Was it a memory triggered? So if it was a memory triggered, it was a direct relation to something that you've already experienced. That's a little bit easier to deal with, because now you can go back to that memory that it had triggered, which is going to be your seed, your stem. And you can now go back and you can look at that and say, okay, this is what happened. This is the healing I need to do in this aspect. This is how I can now bring it to myself to heal. And be grateful that you have that opportunity to do that. And be grateful that you are in that position. Again, watch it. Look, I'm telling you these things. That's ego. Just allow. Just let it be. Eventually it's going to come to a point where you can be triggered, and you can choose to walk away from that trigger and not ingest it, not take it upon yourself or within yourself that this happened to me, they said this to me, this experience triggered me, this happened, I got triggered in this area, now I know what area to heal, to focus on. Let it go by saying, that person maybe is having a bad day. I send them love and light and blessings, that their day might get better for them, that their life might get better for them. Not from a place of altruism or a place of ego, but genuinely feel that for them. Like, I feel for this person. It's a little bit of the empath, but don't allow that empath to now cross that line into, now you're going to take upon yourself what stuff they're going through. Because that also can tend towards ego, but as empaths, it triggers something else in you. So that's another thing for empaths. You also need to learn, are these triggers my triggers, or am I picking up on the emotion that's being expressed to me from them, that I'm picking up their triggers? It's a bit complicated, but when you really break it down and you fall into a flow with it, it's not difficult, it's not complicated at all. It simply just is. And it does take practice. And don't beat yourself up if you get triggered and if you fly off the handle. It happens to the best of us. But then we can also realize, do we want to continue to carry that with us? And do we want to keep putting ourselves into that position of holding on? Or can we allow ourselves to have that momentary blow up? Maybe even give yourself an hour to be lost in the whole, oh my gosh, this happened to me, I can't believe it, feeling. But then move on. Let it go. Send it love and light and gratitude for the experience that it gave to you. Someone once said to me, actually it was rather recently, that somebody was bullying their child and there was nothing that they could really do about it, because talking to these people wasn't helping. It was just making creating the situation worse for the child being bullied. And it wasn't being just bullied by a child, it was also being bullied by the parents of the child. And I said, well, send them blessings, because in this instance the way that they are bullying is displaying their absolute lack of confidence, their jealousy, and their fear, the way that your daughter is triggering for them. So be kinder to them. Combat hate with kindness. Now again, in certain situations, which are, mostly rare situations, we don't, if a person is coming after us with a gun, we don't turn around and necessarily be kind if they're starting to shoot at us. Okay? But that's an extreme situation. I'm talking about in generalities of what is life. Because, we've all experienced bullying, being bullied, being the bully. If you look at that, our roles, we've really lived all of these roles. So honestly, how can we truly allow ego to say, I'm a victim of what somebody has done to me if you've done the exact same thing? So we forgive. We send love. We send light. We don't need to necessarily have to have anything more to do with that person. And that's okay too. You've got to have self-preservation as well as you're moving forward. Sometimes that's a toxic energy that you've done with. It's time to now ease it out and let it go. It's like cleaning the house, spring cleaning. You get rid of all of the negative experiences, the negative thoughts, the negative vibes in the house that is dust and dirt and grime. We get rid of it. And now you have a sparkly new home. It's the same thing for your higher self. So live in that attitude of gratitude. The purpose of life truly is to learn the lessons, to recognize those lessons as we're learning them, to let them go so we can now move on to newer lessons. Hopefully nicer, brighter, more positive lessons, but lessons nonetheless. And being grateful and happy for it, because gratitude leads to happiness. So as you're thinking of giving this year, giving of gifts, giving of yourself, realize that it's like that hug. What you're giving, you're also receiving. As you sit down to a meal that you've prepared or that you're just sitting down to, look around the table and look at people's faces as they're enjoying the food. This is a beautiful mark of living in that situation, to understand that gratitude and joy. Because when you see somebody else enjoying something, you too will receive joy. With that, I send you love and light and happy holidays. Merry Christmas, and may you be blessed and continually live in that attitude of gratitude. Blessed be.